Everybody, welcome back. We're going to do a kind of continuation of last week. We were going over the new Hantavirus and the COVID-19 scam, and the imprint that it's still left on the world is being felt, I believe, by this latest scam. And we're going to go through and look at the vaccine tonight. We're also going to look at the current news. It's Sunday, I'm sorry. And I felt a little pain, in my throat. I felt like I was getting sick. I felt extremely tired. And I ended up just gargling tons of salt water and killed it. I never take medicine. I certainly don't go to doctors. Any of you guys who are familiar with me know you're never going to find me in a doctor's office. I mean, I'd have to have my arm blown off, dangling around, walking in the wind to actually step foot in a doctor's office. But those of you who know me, no, that's pretty much an accurate statement. So I did it the way I always do it, with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided. And Monday I stayed out of work. I had plenty of vacation, PTO time. I was watching the news, which I very rarely watch television. I typically pay for television for sports. It's one of my only guilty pleasures. I do enjoy watching sports, but I very rarely turn on the news. So I was at home, usually I'm at work during these hours, and I'm going through the clicker between Fox and CNN. It's either something with Trump as usual, or it's the Hantavirus. And so many of the characters from the last comedy are back, and they're saying the same things. So again, I felt it's a need for part two. There was a lot of things last week. It was very spontaneous. Most of that, 90+% of it, was literally out of my head. I was just telling out of memory, telling out of experience, telling out of research memory. Today I've got a little bit more. We're going to look at some of the aspects and the leftovers from COVID and how it ties into this. But it was just all day. It was nothing but them doing it again, or setting the stage to do it again. So I'm like, okay, they really might be trying this. I talked about that last week. Are they really going to try it again? Well, from that particular Monday's day of news, a couple hours there, it looks certainly so. I mean, Scarf Lady's back. Haven't seen that witch since COVID. Miss Deborah Brooks, the one who famously wore the scarf around her neck, who was up there with the Jesuit liar, Dr. or what do you call him, a doctor, Dr. Fauci. You see Tedros, I talked about him last week, the one who is a semi-cross-dresser, you could say, who's the head of the World Health Organization. What's he saying? Same thing. We need a vaccine. And of course, they're working on one, as we talked about last week, and we're going to look at the previous one. And I'm going to be giving you some things that you're not going to hear in the masjids again. You're not going to hear it on the news. But you're going to hear it from Pfizer, because Pfizer literally has to publish these. So we're going to be looking at some side effects later. And we're going to look also at the ridiculous measures that they put in during the COVID scam to prepare everybody not to follow them this time, to expose it for what the real intent behind it was, how much of a farce the whole thing is. And I think there's probably some doubters last week who still believe this. They still got suckered, back in the 2020, 2023, time period. And we're hoping to win some more of them over tonight with just straight raw data and facts. So after watching this torturous, because again, watching modern news is torturous. Majority of it's lies. Obviously, the people on there are actors. They're not news anchors by any means. People have this idea, and I want to kind of end this too, that the news anchor is someone who's out there in the field. He's taking the pictures, doing the interviews. It's like on the scene reporting. Well, that was true long time ago. But now, simply what it is they are repeaters. They are reading off a script. That's why they get the most handsome, if they can find them, the most pretty, most make-upped up people they can possibly find, who can change facial expressions like that, who sell the drama. They are performers. They are nowhere near closer to the news than you or I are. They're just simply, hey, you're going to read that today off that teleprompter. You're going to use this emotion here, that emotion there. And they get the best of the best to do this. And more times than not, when you look at who these people are, I mean, obviously the Zionists in a lot of cases, obviously they're people who are connected to the Brotherhood, who have paid their dues in this system and who've earned that right to get an easy job, making great money, and really speaking for about 30 minutes a day. I mean, it's a very good gig if you could get it, but you've got to be a professional liar and a professional manipulator. So I started going around and looking again around this thing, surfing through social media. And the first thing that popped up was, and anytime you see something, you got to verify it, was the term henta as a meaning in the Hebrew slang language, modern day language that's used in the state of Israel. Henta actually translates into nonsense, scam, fake or fraudulent situation. So I saw that, and of course I'm not fluent in Hebrew. I wanted to verify. So I went out there and I did just that. I verified, and yes, the term hanta does mean exactly as I just said it was. So again, these guys, they love this game. They love to tell you with the most obvious ways what they're about to do to you, how they are lying to you. They're going to give you the clues. And if you believe it, it's up to you at that point. They've gotten away with it. It's part of a game, you know, for them. If they're about to inflict harm or damage on you, they want you to be complicit in it and aware of it. And they're going to make every attempt for you to be aware of it. And here, hanta literally translates into nonsense, scam, fraudulent situation. So no accident. I mean, they'll say, oh, the terms are a little bit different. No, that's what it means. And there's never been any flag in a social media post saying that's not accurate. Certainly, if it wasn't, you'd have many people who speak Hebrew would gladly flag the video. It happens all the time. People flag videos for everything. And nothing was ever flagged because it's actually true. So I started going on again, and I saw that in Australia they had published, it was a 33-day odyssey. There's that number again. I talked about that last week. Look for that number. You find that number every single time they pull something like this. The 33 number is going to be there. I talked about it in COVID, 33 dead. The back of the ambulance they showed in one of the first overcrowded hospitals, 33 was flashing right on the camera. Here we see it already again here. So you have a 33-day odyssey. There's that number. They even showed something that was hilarious. They took a picture of some guys, again, in phony hazmat suits, getting onto a bus. And the bus driver wasn't wearing anything. The bus driver is sitting there. He's not even wearing one of the phony COVID masks. He's literally just wearing his street clothes. He's a bus driver. And these guys are all, again, in their phony hazmat suits, are just boarding a bus. Now, if anyone, again, is familiar on a surface level even with hazardous waste protocols and procedures, you don't go and just get on a bus. We just checked a couple of contaminated guys. Let's hop on the bus. And it doesn't work that way. Obviously, you're going to get whatever the material potentially on the seats. Depends on how long this thing supposedly could live outside of the body, outside of a host. You're not going to touch things without being thoroughly cleaned. You know, before you ever leave the area, you're going to be thoroughly cleaned. The hazmat suits are going to be thoroughly cleaned. And then you'll be permitted to go back out into the public if it was actually real. But they're just boarding the bus, walking around with my hazmat suit, no problem. And the bus driver, of course, is wearing nothing. They showed another one of these videos. They had the guy in the wheelchair. He was supposedly infected. And he's wearing a hazmat suit as well. Then, lo and behold, back there in the back, there's a security guy just standing there. He's wearing nothing. There you go. What a dangerous virus this must be. It's 40% fatality rate, 40% mortality. You're going to die, 40%, according to their, statements here. So if I'm a security guard, obviously I've heard about it on television. I would not be wanting to stand out there next to people, with this. No way. I mean, I'd be, hey, give me a hazmat suit also, but of course it's all an act. It's all a charade, and they put the truth right there in front of you. We go on. So during this, I'm hearing the talks in the media, and they're talking about how you may not have symptoms while carrying the virus. Remember that one? That was one of the signature parts of the COVID scam. One of the signature parts. They look at the great protections that they were using there in that image. In COVID, they got us because they're saying, well, you could be walking around killing people, potentially, because you're not going to feel a symptom. So that was the main thing they used to justify the lockdowns and to justify people lining up to constantly get tested. I knew during COVID guys that were getting tested 4 or 5 times a month. And I asked one of them, I said, do you think that's a bit extreme? And he said, I've got elderly grandparents and I'm concerned about them. So his heart was in the right place, and may Allah judge him accordingly. But you've been brainwashed, my friend. You're not going to be walking around with a virus that's lethal, supposedly, and not feel anything. You're not going to have any symptoms or anything of the sort. It was pure control. And you're seeing here, as they're doing it again, the cases are up every time they show it. And I'm going to get to where I think it's going to start getting bigger here in a little bit. We're going to cover that here in a few minutes. So again, they're saying you can't have symptoms and still spread it. So again, let's lock people up. Let's lock them down for a long period of time. Let's quarantine them for a long period of time. Scary language, again, coming out of these clowns. And guess what tests they're using? I think anyone who watched me last week knows what's going to be said here. The polymerase chain reaction test, the same test that Carrie Mullis invented, who died before the COVID scam, who said this is not a test to test current infection. That's why they had to make sure. They blamed it on a disease, but most people believe he was taken out, obviously, in a variety of clever means. He wasn't around to defend his test from what was happening to it, how it was being abused and being used to justify the economic, mental, and physical sabotage of an entire generation of people. And we're going to look at that part later when we talk about all the absurdities in terms of controls that came out during the COVID scam that they may be trying to put in again. So they're using a test, not testing for the virus, to diagnose the virus. And they're never held to the fire on this. They're never asked to explain how this test shows this virus, because remember, they used it for COVID. So how do we know they don't have COVID again? Because the test doesn't do that. The test shows the body's history and antibody production of fighting off past infections. We talked about what it does with going back in the DNA and analyzing. It's like a photocopier in a sense. Nothing to do with diagnosing current infection, and they're going to be trying to use it again. 6 weeks, they're saying, of quarantine is needed for this. Because again, it's asymptomatic. You can spread it without symptoms. Symptoms take a long time. How convenient. How convenient. 6 weeks. Someone could be taken out, take one of these phony PCR tests, be told they're infected. You can't go to work for 6 weeks. You have to stay in the house. Are they going to put an ankle bracelet on us? Like house arrest? I mean, they're going to put you in jail if you go out. I mean, we saw fanatical stuff during COVID going on in places like Australia, places in Europe. I mean, in Dubai, good old UAE. They used to make you download an app on your phone that told how many people were in your house, and you had to have it turned on. And if you didn't, they massive fines. In prison, what a great Muslim nation the UAE is. And they certainly had no problem. Saudi Arabia was doing this. Bahrain was doing this. All these countries where they don't have to go through Congress. Like, it's one thing good. Here was a lot of this stuff, we're protected by the Constitution because we're a constitutional republic. They weren't able to shove all this stuff on us the way we saw it in other places. Other places, it was horrific type of indignities that people were being subjected to over this nonsense. So it gets interesting here. The Economist magazine, now those of you who've watched me before will know that the Economist magazine published an issue in 2012, I believe it's 2012, 2013. And I talked about this in a past show, maybe about a year ago, when we were talking about Israel and Hamas and the phony stage hang glider incident that went on over there. Well, on this magazine cover back then, you saw Netanyahu and a Hamas dressed guy fighting each other on hang gliders in the top of the magazine cover. And we exposed that here. This was out over a decade before they actually did the plan. What are the odds of that? Who would ever think if there was going to be an attack that someone would do an attack with hang gliders? I mean, you can go back and look at human history. I can't think of really very many attacks or wars or conflicts that were started by people ambushing someone on hang gliders. But yet it was on that magazine cover because they're reading off a script. They knew what was coming. Those of you who don't believe can easily verify that information by looking up the Economist magazine, type in Netanyahu and Hamas on hang gliders, and it should pop right up. Sometimes you may have to do a couple search tweaks, but eventually you're going to get it. It was out there. They're calling the shots. Again, what they're planning on doing. It took a little bit longer. We don't know why. Maybe they would have done it in 2 years. Something came up. Who knows? But it was there. So that same magazine now had another cover that came out. The cover was a circle, which was looking to represent the Earth. And each one of these different sections of that circle had different geopolitical events. A lot of people have theorized, with good reason, that this was symbolizing the months of the year around the circle of the Earth and the time. So you had basically in January, you saw different things. You had the boat situation was up there in March in that grid, showing the Strait of Hormuz and the problems that are going on there. Also depicted with a tank symbolizing conflict. But we get to something interesting. We get around to May and June. You see the little needles are there in the bottom of this graph. And obviously there are vaccines. You see them in May, and then you see them popping up on the other side of the graph again, furthered by more war. There's a voting depiction there with a ballot being stuffed. Don't know exactly what the symbolism behind that one is yet, but very interesting is in the bottom you see a soccer player. He's outside of the Earth diagram there, and he's kicking. And you see the streaks are going in different directions, almost kind of showing in a way that it's spreading something. That ball's going out and it's spreading all over, the world. And a lot of people, myself, can lean to this as well, that they're almost in a way going to use the World Cup possibly as a justification for massive spread of this thing. Because the cruise ship story, you have people going off to South Africa, to Europe, to America, obviously. It wouldn't be as effective of a lie as saying, oh, look, it was the World Cup that's coming to America, Mexico, and Canada. You're going to have the whole world there, literally. They expand. I'm not a fan of soccer. It's not a thing here in this country. I didn't really grow up with it, but they expanded the tournament this year. More countries are in it. You're going to have games in Mexico, Canada, and the United States. It's perfect lie, perfect smokescreen to say this thing spread it all over the world. And again, this magazine was put out, before all this stuff really got going. So are they calling the shots again? We've already seen that same magazine do it once. Are they possibly going to do it again? Very interesting stuff, there. So we had also this week as well, Tedros again talking about this, and he specifically highlighted the fact that he wanted the children to be taking this vaccine. Now, this is going to be very important when we look at the previous vaccine side effects here before we close the presentation today. We're going to read and highlight some of the big ones. Some of them are very minor conditions that most people have not heard of. Some of them you're obviously going to know of, and some of them I felt a need to really highlight and bring out what exactly the vaccine is doing to people as it ties into the population control and birth regulation agenda. They even went to say, even this week as well, this was posted in the Telegram in the UK, that this variation of the virus, of this new Hantavirus, the variation of it, the Andis virus, that it can stay in your semen for 6 years. Interesting. 6 years. If you're a male, you could supposedly spread this to a female through your semen. We're going to look at that and where that all comes from. We get to the COVID vaccine and what that's the smoke screen it appears to be for. So again, very interesting stuff, coming out of the media. And the same actors are back. And what they're trying to do at this point in the game is they're trying to just throw so much stuff at you that you don't have time to really process or digest it all. They're throwing religious corruption at us. I've highlighted that on this channel many times. Muslim 2.0, the Sneeko type people, the Warner type people, the people that are out there promoting filth and degeneracy in the name of Islam, normalizing anti-Islamic behaviors as being halal because they're social media influencers. They have a grip on your children. We've seen the religious war, as I just mentioned. We've seen what's going on financially with the stock market and the economy, prices of goods, all the stuff that's happening with Iran. We've seen all the stuff that was happening with Palestine. We're seeing now this. It's like you shoot one tennis ball at me, I can focus on it, I can catch it. But you shoot 4 or 5 at me at every single second of the day, we can't process it all. You can kind of slow it down, go into each issue. If you're already ahead of the game, it's easier to do than if you're trying to learn for the first time, obviously. But it's so much stuff being thrown at us so fast by these guys that it's very hard to catch it all and be completely free from their corruption, from their mental pollution, if you will. So to go back and revisit COVID here, to look at some of the ridiculous things that they put in for COVID during that time period, that if we start seeing them again, to know again what's going on. Total scam. One of the first was the 6-foot distancing. I think everybody especially I know they had them everywhere here. When you went out to a store or whatever and you walked around and you had to see the arrows on the floor and they had those little stickers and everything there. I remember one time I was in a line and I just got too close to somebody in front of me and they said something. I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, do you not understand how this stuff even works? So you sheep, but I didn't want to fight, didn't want to argue, I want to get my stuff and go home as I often do when I'm in the store. So I back up 1 foot to make him feel happy. How nonsensical this was. And there's a lot of people that have speculated that the reason they did 6-foot distancing was because they were testing facial recognition technology. And they wanted to make sure they could get all the quirks out, kinks out, if you will. And they wanted to get good looks at people, so they spaced them out because there was zero scientific backing for this. It made no sense. When you sneeze, you're throwing these particles out with force. And if you cover it up, that force is going to go down, obviously. If you're wearing a mask, it's going to go through, but it's not going to travel as far. But the thing is, the space that you're moving into that was previously occupied by someone, these things can live outside the body, sometimes for significant periods of time. We had a guy at work who he suffered a massive concussion. I had to treat his wounds while he was unconscious. I had to try to do some concussion tests on him to try to get into his brain stimulated, things like that. He had a lot of blood. So we got into the EMTs. I went back there and I had trained my team already of how to manage the blood and everything. And we bagged up the blood. We sealed it up. I put it in a safe spot. They said, what are you going to do with the blood? And I was like, well, if we wait 7 days, pretty much all major bloodborne pathogens will be dead. We can throw it away in the general waste. So some things are 7 days. Some things are 24 hours. Some things are less. Depends on what the pathogen or whatever it is. It's going to stay there for at least a few hours. So this 6-foot mess made 0 sense scientifically. And they later admitted they made it up. That this was baseless. It came from nothing. So we saw that. going on there. One of the many, many things. We saw the massive sales of hand sanitizer. It was another one of the kooky things they did to us during COVID. You gotta have your hand sanitizer. Now, I want you guys, if you ever have any of this stuff, to read what it does. They always say it kills 99.9% of germs, bacteria, and so on. But what they don't tell you is that it also kills the good bacteria. Good bacteria are a balance of a law. Good bacteria in our stomach, in our mouths, and all these things. A huge lecture I could do just on this alone of how they've lied over the years and try to tell you that what is good bacteria, but they try to all bacteria are the same. They are not. And when you have these antibodies that Allah gave us on our hands and in our bodies, in our stomach, in our mouths to fight off these things. And when you put that stuff on, what you are doing is killing everything. So now the bad bacteria can get back there first while the good bacteria is not there to deal with it. So now when you do things like this, you're going to be more risky. If you've ever looked, and I mean, again, this can't be, I don't have a study to prove this, but it's one of the things that you observe in life, is that the people who do like these type of things all the time, usually they're the most sick people. They call them the neat freaks, the clean freaks. They're always putting this stuff on. They're always doing everything they can. And yet they're always the people that get sick the most. When I was growing up, we used to play in the sewer. We used to play in the mud. No one died. We had strong immune systems because of it, because our body developed antibodies, developed resistances to these things. We weren't living in a bubble. You live in a bubble when you're exposed to something, you're going to get sick like that. But they don't tell you that. Again, people were, ripping the skin even off their hands over time because they were putting hand sanitizer on so much because they were so afraid of getting this imaginary virus. I watched a gentleman in our office. He opened up the door from the plant floor to the office. He put his hand sanitizer on. He walked to his desk. He touched the doorknob, opened up his desk, got down to his desk, put on more hand sanitizer before he touched his computer, and then he put gloves on. I mean, it was just to type and to interact with his phone. I mean, it was absolute insanity, all baseless science. They said, don't go outside. This was another one. When being outside when you're sick is the best thing for you. We live indoors too much. Indoor air pollution is worse than smoking, as some people have suggested over the years. We are meant to be outside. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us to be an outdoor creature. Our shelters and dwellings were for places of rest, places of shade from the sun or from the wind and the rains. They were not made to be permanent abodes where we stay, and we all do it. I do it as well, of course. But going out for a healthy walk every day, going out and getting the sunlight, you get that vitamin D, which turbocharges your immune system. No credible person would tell you not to be in the sun, to fight off infection. No one would tell you that. Fresh air in the sun, especially if you live close to a beach, and getting that natural sea air with the sun. But they closed the beaches, didn't they? But Walmart, again, was open. Go to Walmart, indoor area, recycled, dry, AC, temperature-controlled air. And that's okay. That's fine. But don't go to the beach. Don't go to the park. This was a big, big thing they were pushing. And again, symptom-free transmission. That was another one. We're seeing that lie already. They're already going with that one. That's already here. Again, that's completely nonsensical. And one of my favorites was that the people who got the vaccine, and Joe Biden, of course, promoted this heavily, was that in order for your vaccine to work better, I have to get vaccinated as well. How, again, nonsensical is that? You're telling me that your vaccine won't work unless I thought the point of the vaccine was to make your body be able to fight off the infection without you dying, correct? That's what they were taking it for. It's what they were sold they were taking it for. Now you're told, I got to get vaccinated to go to the workplace as well because your vaccine won't work if I don't have it. This was obviously a way of trying to put in collective guilt. You had all these people on social media saying, oh, you inconsiderate. You don't care about me. You don't care about the old people. You don't care about the children. They always dangle that in front of you. Oh, you're evil. You don't care about the children. You don't care about the old people. Biden said you're going to have a cold, dark winter if you don't get the vaccine. Well, I didn't take the vaccine. I didn't have a cold, dark winter, needless to say. And most people, of course, did not. I mean, outside the normal ailments that you get every winter, it's common. But that was, again, one of my favorites that they put out there. And they're going to do it again because they got away with it the first time. They're going to say the same lies that you have to have. Everybody has to get the vaccine to make it work. Early curfews. This was the beginnings of the COVID stage. He said, the virus apparently it spreads worse in the night than during the day. So things had to be closed early. This was, again, to cripple businesses. That's all this was. They were limiting the operation time. A lot of these small business owners are living, they're really just like salaried employees, basically. They're not filthy rich. They rely on their hours. They're paying a monthly rent based on them operating 10 to 12 hours a day. And you're taking away 4 to 5 operation hours from them. You're taking away their revenue. And small businesses, a lot of them did not survive this scam. The ones that did barely got by, but so many succumbed, to these restrictions. You found one of my all-time favorites of anything they've ever pulled. This was truly magical. And this one right here just shows how mindless, unfortunately, the common person has become. I'm not saying that they are. A lot of them invent them to be that way. But they become that. Do not know how to think for themselves. They're just nothing more than regurgitating robots. Was the toilet paper. I remember when I first heard, I was like, what? Are you kidding me? There was all this stuff about toilet paper craze that was going on at the beginning of this. And I was like, what? And I went to the supermarket and I had never seen this in my life. Literally all the toilet paper was gone. People were buying toilet paper for this. For what purpose? For your nose? I mean, why did you need, for what they're telling you, it's a respiratory virus, supposedly, and you're running out there to buy toilet paper? What is that going to accomplish? They even ran a story. It was about a little girl who was preparing care packs for the elderly. There's one of those feel-good stories they run on the news to, oh, look, the little girl's making a difference. And she was packing things for the elderly, like hand sanitizer and a mask. Gotta got the mask in there. And then toilet paper roll was tucked in there. And I'm looking at like, what am I missing here? Where's the person's mind make that kind of correlation? I need this, and I need more of it than normal for a respiratory virus. And this was obviously a scam. The toilet paper industry, I always used to make a joke about this. They must have went in there when they invited all these CEOs to talk about the lockdowns and all the things that they were going to do. If I was a toilet paper CEO and I didn't care about humanity, I would go, hey, guys, can you market this for us? We'll sell more stuff than we've ever sold before. And that's exactly what happened. They made a killing. They couldn't keep it on the shelves. It was people were going out and hoarding it. Then you have the other people, the opportunists, that were going to stores early, and they were buying it from Amazon, and then they were selling it for $30, $40 for a 6-piece. I mean, insanity. And the reason I'm bringing that one up is because of the absurdity of it, people not being able to think for themselves. And then now they're doing it with the motor oil, with the Iran thing. This has become a new trend where people will go out now and kind of try to copy this. And they're saying, oh, we got memos from Exxon and Shell and Mobil Oil. They're going to run out of motor oil. You're not going to be able to get oil changes in your car. And guess what's happening? You got people now going to Walmart buying entire shopping carts. You can't get a motor oil in some places right now because of this. Because what are they going to do? They're going to go sell it on eBay, or they're going to sell it on Amazon. So again, this was something that went on early in the COVID scam that really was just head scratching. And you have, last but not least, you have the dancing nurses, which was the ultimate mockery. These nurses, I talked about this last week, shaking their behinds. There'd be a guy in there with them. They're doing choreographed Michael Jackson-like dance stuff. Everybody's synchronized. Everybody's on time because they had nothing to do. There's nobody in the hospitals. They stopped all the people going in, unless you were going in for COVID, which again, and it's like just laughing in our face. If these people were really in a pandemic and they were scared they were going to die, and every patient that comes in could potentially be your last, are you going to be out there doing this sexualized dancing? Obviously, it was a Masonic humiliation rituals done all across the world to make fun of us and laugh in our face at what they're going to do. And this is exactly what they did. As I told people, there's a vaccine waiting for you It's going to come out within a year. They got it out earlier than that. I thought they would let us live like this for about a year before they would get the real anxious people. Please give us a vaccine. Please, please, please. And then bang, okay, we got it for you. But they actually rolled it out quite early, earlier than I expected. But I knew it was coming. And immediately I told people, don't take it. This is a bioweapon. I don't know that yet, but my gut's telling me, knowing these guys for so many years, what they're up to, they're telegraphing exactly what they're going to do. And when Pfizer came out and released the side effects after pressure, I mean, it was like, wow, wow. And it all, of course, lined up with exactly what myself and many other people were saying, was it was a bioweapon. And we're going to look at some of these, and a lot of them are going to really jump out of the page. When I talked about last week, the miscarriages since the vaccine are up 300%, you're going to see this vaccine systematically destroys both men and women's reproductive capacities for those of them who took it. Now, the first thing was blood clots. Now, this has become one of the more famous aspects of the COVID scam vaccine. Blood clots, there's been many reasons as to why. A lot of the nanoparticles people are talking about are developing charges, which are basically bringing the blood together. And the blood then coagulates, groups up together and everything, and then it just becomes a massive mass of, clumped up blood inside. And there's been a lot of videos on this where people have shown some of the stuff that they've pulled out of dead patients. Horrific stuff. Coroner saying, I've never seen anything like this before in my life. Another one, acute kidney injury, basically damaging the kidneys. You have basically this condition here called acute flaccid myelitis, which is rare but serious neurological condition that primarily affects children. It attacks the gray matter of the spinal cord and causes sudden weakness in the arms or legs, loss of muscle tone, and decreased reflexes. Interesting. Side effect there. They explain why it does that. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Positive sperm antibodies. This is what me and a lot of people were saying this thing was going to do, and it was right on script. I was really happy with the loss of spinal thalamic giving me the insight to really see. I said this is going to attack the reproductive system. It's going to use your own body against you. This appears to be exactly what it did. So what is this? These are immune system proteins that mistakenly identify sperm as foreign invaders. This is what mRNA does. It has a same sequence. I talked about this briefly last week, said we would come back to it. Here we are. So the mRNA sequences match the proteins it's taught to destroy, match the sperm proteins in the man. So what does it do to them? It destroys them. It kills them off. So guess what's going to happen? Infertility, pain, injuries, and numerous other things. And the main thing is that infertility, because if you're going to want to erase a population, you want to do it in a way that doesn't leave a trace. Men are probably walking around, definitely walking around with this side effect right now, and they don't know. They don't know why. They just cannot conceive a child. A lot of men, they typically always go and blame the woman. The woman goes and blames the man. We're going to see they attack the woman too. So it could be both, parties here. You got brainstem embolism. What is brainstem embolism, you might ask? It occurs when a traveling blood clot, there's that side effect, why I read that one first, blocks an artery supplying blood to the brainstem. It's a life-threatening medical emergency that required immediate intervention to restore blood flow and minimize any other permanent neurological damage. Blood clots affecting the brain. We get neonatal death. This is a death of a live-born baby within 28 days of its life, typically between 0 and 27, with about 75% occurring in the first week. So most of these are going to be right there. Devastating, obviously. So you're going to prevent them from having children in some cases. And in other cases, the effect would be the child basically developing and dying within the first month. Interesting. Fetal distress, often termed as non-reassuring fetal stratus in RFS, is basically signs during pregnancy or labor that a fetus is not receiving adequate oxygen. It's primarily being in the form of abnormal fetal heart rate patterns that are too fast, too slow, declining, leads to serious lasting injuries, cerebral palsy, if not treated properly. Needless to say, if someone is born with this, most likely they're not going to have children when they reach adulthood if they survive either. You get stillbirths, and this is good old Pfizer. What great people they are, I tell you, with Bourla. Who is Alan Bourla? He is the CEO of Pfizer. What is he? A Zionist. No accident there. He's more than happy to put out a product like this. And guess what? When they put out the product with our tax dollars, they had to sign that they would never be liable. The U.S. government signed they would never be liable. You can't sue these guys for this. You can't. You were forced in some cases to take this for your job, but yet you cannot sue these guys for all this stuff they're giving you. We're going to go on. It's a lot more. I'm just going with the birth stuff and the clot things here first. So stillbirth, the loss of pregnancy after the 20th week of gestation, occurs roughly in 1 out of 160. They say the exact cause is unknown, but typically it's just poor development of the baby. Interesting, isn't it? Testicular autoimmunity. This is very similar to what we described earlier. The immune system, again, is attacking the testes, leading to chronic inflammation, anti-sperm antibodies, potential infertility. And then sudden infant death syndrome. Sounds lovely. Unexpected death by apparently healthy baby under the year of age, usually occurring during sleep. While the exact cause is unknown, experts believe it stems from a combination of physical vulnerabilities, brain development issues, environmental stressors, and unsafe sleeping or unnormal sleeping conditions. So you got a lot of these conditions here. There's one that I didn't leave in my detailed paragraph notes there, which is talking about the placenta, which I talked about last week. It attacks the placenta, developing proteins, which makes the placenta not strong, which leads to the baby having all kinds of other problems. Now, these are conditions that have always happened for a variety of reasons. Mother's health, things the mother's done during pregnancy, maybe things doing with the man, sperm quality, variety of environmental factors. I mean, quite extensive. So they can easily write it off. Well, it's natural. It's one in 160 births. Well, now instead of being 1 in 160, it's 10 in 160. It's 20 in 160. And that's enough for them to gradually get the population going, but they've got to keep getting this stuff in us. And now with COVID, nobody's going to want to take it anymore because they see COVID as a joke. So you just keep on coming up with more. We're going to get to the end game on that, how they're going to guarantee that here in a minute. So let's just go through a couple other ones. You're going to notice the heart now will be a theme. Cardiac arrest, beautiful condition. Heart just stops. Heart failure, generally same thing. Cardiac ventricular thrombosis, cardiogenic shock. Central nervous system vacuolitis. We talked about, there's some of these ones on here I'm not familiar with. So there's 49 total of these. Turbo cancer. We've heard about that recently. Tumors grow and cancers grow rapidly, like never seen before. You see shingles can reactivate. You see cancer reactivation. Cancer that's been dormant comes back and becomes turbo cancers. You see liver damage, low birth rates, myocarditis is another issue with the heart. A lot of athletes have fell down on the ground, during games. They looked at them, they had myocarditis. These are healthy young men, prime condition of their lives, great physiques, and then all of a sudden they're falling. These are not obese men. These are not men who are couch potatoes. These are generally athletes, tip-top physical condition. Pneumonia was a side effect there. Tachycardia, another heart condition there. Type 1 diabetes variations there. And yeah, as we talked about, all the different ones with birth issues. All of these, again, targeting the heart or the reproductive system. Heart disease is the #1 killer in this country. So if you want to engineer population reduction, that would be a pretty good place to start, I would think, because it's not really going to throw people off. You say, oh, my daddy died. What did he die of? He was 55 only. Oh, he died of myocarditis. It's a heart condition. He died of a stroke. Oh, guess what? It's a side effect in the Pfizer vaccine as well. So again, killing without a trace. Now, what did Tedros say? I told you we we're going to come back to kind of close on this. Because again, those people have already taken it. But if they want to consistently lower the birth rates, they have to get the subsequent generations, don't they? So they want you to be part of the pharmaceutical system. And they're going to use pandemics as an excuse to do that because they're already talking about the digital ID. But you're going to need the digital ID. And what are they going to do? They're going to dangle it in front of you. You like to travel, don't you? You want to go to see Spain. You want to go travel to Mecca for religious reasons. If you're Shia, you want to go to see Karbala. If you're someone who's from China, you want to go visit home. You want to go visit Japan. Wherever you're going to go. Well, buddy, you're not getting on that plane until you have a digital ID. That'll how the start will begin that way. Then, of course, as Tedros said, we want to tie the health records into that as well. So China will deny entry to you if you don't have your vaccinations up to date. Spain will not allow me to go. If I want to go to Mecca, for Hajj or Umrah, no way, buddy. You need to have those updated shots because your vaccine, if it's not there, it's not going to help those people. Their vaccine won't work without yours. And the Muslim world and their leaders are complicit in this. We saw this in the way the GCC countries reacted during COVID. They're completely involved in this. And they're going to have no problem doing that. And it's going to make a lot of people have to face a very difficult decision. Are you going to be part of pharmakia, the black magic system, to go practice your religious rights? I trust in the law. I've been, fortunately, alhamdulillah, to Umrah twice. And they're not putting this in my body to go. And I hope Allah is happy, obviously, with my decision. I believe he will be. But there's no way. I mean, absolutely not. They can dangle whatever they want in front of me. I'm not going to be part of this system. But that's where it's going. Prince Charles, that great human being he came out this week. And the British public, every time they've been asked, has overwhelmingly rejected this. They don't want this. No one wants this. Because they're also going to tie it to your social credit as well. So if you're a good boy, it's going to be on that ID. This guy's good. He obeys the law. He eats at McDonald's. He watches stupid reality television. He's a good servant of the state. But this guy over here, we don't really like him. He's got a big mouth. He thinks for himself. He doesn't care what people think. He's an outsider. He's not eating at McDonald's. He's not watching the garbage we're selling him on TV. He's not streaming, binge watching Netflix. He's a bad boy over here. We're going to put that, tag on his social ID. They do it in China already. And China is where they want to go when it comes to this type of police state. And they'll use anything they can to get there because they want you in that medical system constantly having to take these shots. They tried it in COVID with the boosters, and people after the first booster were just not going anymore. Only the people who were really, really brainwashed. Every time they came out with a new phony variant, we used to sit around in the office and make up variant names like the sheep variant, the moronic variant, whatever was coming next. And every one of them was like a test of IQ. Who was just going to keep on going in there? And, that was the way of getting that stuff to be for generations to come. But people, again, stopped going. It was just the sales were dropping. So they need something else. And here they have Henta, coming out. The nonsense and scam and falsehood in the Hebrew slang is what they're going to use to try to possibly get there. Now, again, they may not. The public backlash and ridicule is already massive. I mean, you see so many people mocking this stuff in social media. They may back down. Hopefully they do, because I personally don't want to pay $3,000 rent. I mean, last time COVID doubled my rent. I don't think I can make it if this one doubles my rent again. I don't think any of us want to live through the economic warfare they waged on us if they do this. So we pray, we trust in the law, and know that as long as we do the right thing, the law is going to have our protection. It's guaranteed. We just have to wake people up and be aware of what the enemy is doing. One of my favorite hadiths is the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was asked by a man, if I trust in the law and the law's got covered, basically, should I just leave my camel? And the Messenger ﷺ said, no, you tie the camel and you trust in the law. You go out there and you do your part. You put in the work, and then you trust in the law. Allah is going to reward those who put in the work, not those who just sit around and say, well, Allah is going to fix this for me. I don't have a job. Allah is going to give me one. No. You go out there and you apply, you do your best, you tie the camel, and you trust in the law. And it's the same thing here. You know, we go out and do our part, don't take part in their system, you reject it, wake people up, protect family members and friends, share information, educate them, and trust in the law. And I'll close there. Questions, comments, more than welcome.